Hello everyone and welcome back to Nathrandir's Guide to Everything, and welcome to something new for the channel. Sort of. This is another character builder just like we do in the Legend Forge, but this time we're building a character for Daggerheart rather than Dungeons and Dragons. Now you can probably see by the thumbnail and the title that we are building Vi from Arcane. Again, I do have a Dungeons and Dragons build for her, but that's quite old now. I figured with Arcane Season 2 being out and it being back in the limelight, I really wanted to challenge myself with this new rule set in Daggerheart, which is the game, if you don't know, the tabletop RPG from the creators of Darrington Press, Critical Role, Candela Obscura is another game they made, which is a lot of fun. I'm currently working on a campaign within the Arcane universe, and I want to use the Daggerheart rule set to do that. So for a couple of weeks, I've been building a few characters, and now I've kind of put my chops to the test, you might say, to try and build Vi as best we can with the toolset, and I'm happy to say it's came out fantastically well. So without any more hesitation, let's just jump into it. This is demiplane.com, where I've decided to build the character. All the digital toolset for Daggerheart is built into this, so it just works just fantastic. I think this is the official one that they're actually going with. Just a heads up though, this obviously is still in beta. The game isn't actually out for a few months yet, so this is the 1.5 version of Daggerheart. I assume things will change. Needless to say, this website is totally free to use. You can just sign up and use it from here. From the getting started section here, you can see we do have Vi, and there's a few spoilers with the statistics already, but we'll jump into the class. Now I chose the Guardian class. I thought it suited Vi the best. The domains of which she has is Valor and Blade. Now this just essentially means when you're leveling up, I'll do a bit of Daggerheart explaining as I go because it's fairly new. When you pick a class, you can pick kind of cards from two different domains, in this case Valor and Blade, and they tailor what kind of play style your character will have. Your class choice also decides your evasion score and your damage thresholds. There are a few different resources you can use in Daggerheart to change how your character plays, and I'll try and briefly explain them as best as I possibly can as we go here. So for example, Guardian's Hope is a class feature of the Guardian. Spend 3 hope to clear up to 3 armor slots. So when you would take damage, you can mark an armor slot instead of marking a hit point when you take damage from something. So we can spend 3 hope, which is another resource you gain by rolling critical hits, and there's a few other ways you can get that too. So you can clear some of your broken armor, basically. Another class feature of the Guardian is Unstoppable. Once per long rest, you can choose to become unstoppable. And essentially this feels like a rage for a barbarian in Dungeons and Dragons. It essentially, you deal more damage and have resistance to damage for a certain period of time. In Daggerheart, you kind of place a die face up, and you see it says here, whenever you deal 1 or more hit points to an adversary, increase the unstoppable die value by 1. When you increase the value above the die's highest number when the scene ends, remove the die and drop out of unstoppable. So essentially you deal more damage as it goes up until eventually you don't, and then you drop out of unstoppable. It's a way to just stack damage, basically. Like I mentioned too, you also gain resistance to physical damage. You increase your armor score. We add the unstoppable die to your damage dice. Yes, we knew that. And you cannot be restrained or made vulnerable. So within the Guardian, for a subclass, we have gone with Vengeance, which gives us a few things. This is Foundation Vengeance. When you take this foundation, gain an additional armor slot immediately. When you're hit by an enemy in melee range, immediately roll a number of a d6 equal to the amount of hit points you marked. For each result of 5 plus, deal a hit point back to the enemy. So again, this is to kind of highlight Vi's boxing counters type thing. Like if she takes one, she can just give one back straight away. I really like that. It made much more sense than a stalwart. So we're setting our traits. So I started with this, a +2 to strength, +1 to agility, +1 to instinct, and -1 to knowledge. This made the most sense. They're kind of self-explanatory really, but there is a breakdown on the character sheet so we can see what each of those things do when we go there. If you've played any tabletop RPG, that kind of things shouldn't be too much of a surprise to you. You also choose your starting weapons here. I chose the Arcane Gauntlets. Now there are 2 choices, but there wasn't really a need to pick anything else in this particular scenario. Arcane Gauntlets make sense, so clicking into here, they are a strength based melee weapon and they deal a d10 +3 magic damage, and they are 2-handed, so that makes sense. For our starting armor, I did select the Gambeson armor, but I'll spoil it ahead of time. We took a domain card that essentially means we don't wear armor, which obviously Vi doesn't in the show, but we still have a good armor score as a result. So this bit doesn't really particularly matter for Vi. Starting inventory, again, doesn't really matter because we're just going for a high level build out the gate. I chose a minor health potion and a secret key because these are the choices you get. I thought I'd just show you every stage of the character process here. And for our domain deck card, so this is where you can choose between the Valor and Blade trees, essentially. Think of it like a skill tree. We have a Valor skill tree and a Blade skill tree. I've gone for 2 from Valor out the gate at level 1, and these increase obviously in power and functionality as you level up, so it comes with this cool artwork. Bare Bones is the first one we've gone for while this card is in your loadout. If you choose not to equip armor, you have an armor score equal to 4 plus your level, so that's better than what we could have achieved with armor, I believe, especially with some of the bonuses and other abilities that I've taken. Also at Valor level 1, we've gone for Forceful Push. I thought this made a bit of sense as well. Make an attack with your primary weapon in melee range. On a success, you deal damage, push the target out of melee range. You also may spend a hope to make them vulnerable. So essentially, if you imagine it like it is in the show, she punches someone so hard they get knocked away from you, and she gains a second to kind of right herself and take up a boxing stance again. So that's where the hope comes into it. Hope is another resource you can spend to do things in the game. Let's move on to our heritage, which was pretty straightforward. Ancestry, we've gone with human. All your typical fantasy races are available to play pretty much in here, or species, whatever you want to call them. Ancestry in this game, I guess, I'll get it right. And then we've gone with choose a community. I've gone for Slyborn. Now, essentially, this means being a part of a Slyborn community means growing up in the underbelly of society. She obviously did grow up in Zorn with her sisters and half-brothers, etc., with Vander. And this gives you another skill, Scoundrel. You have advantage on any roll to negotiate with criminals, detect lies, or find a safe place to hide. I think that suits the character very well, and pretty much everybody from Zorn would probably pick this community. So next, let's jump into the experiences. Now, there are a bunch more sections to this of what your character can look like. I never really answer these when I play D&D. I never really write it down anyway. These things come to you, right? But if you did want to go into like the background of a character, you can fill out all of these optional things here to give yourself a bit more depth. So for example, you consider an aspect of yourself to be a weakness. What is it and how has it affected you? So we could think a little bit here about what would be Vi's weakness. Perhaps she is too trustworthy, like when she initially meets Jinx again, well, I guess Powder turned Jinx in season 1. She starts to trust her almost immediately, and then Jinx immediately does something awful. So maybe that's something. We trust people too quickly. Now, experiences are one of the best features of Daggerheart in my experience. An experience is something that essentially shapes your character. And it's almost like having a saving throw or a skill check or proficiency in something in Dungeons & Dragons terms, except you decide what it is and when it would be appropriate to use in the game. So Daggerheart is a little bit more role-play focused, I think, as opposed to combat. It really helps to think a little bit more about your character. So, for example, one of the first experiences I thought of here was obviously she is a boxer. She's learnt to kind of hand-to-hand combat fight. So if there is something that mechanically isn't included on your character sheet, like maybe you call this instead bob and weave, or float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, whatever a boxer's ability would be. But if there's something you want to do in combat, let's say you're one-on-one with a target and it's literally a fist fight. They've got arcane gauntlets as well. You could say, I would like to use my experience to help me in this particular skill check or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Convince someone to do something. So I guess another way of looking at it, I've gone with, you see this look on my face, which is one of the memes from Arcane Season 1. I think she says, you see this look on my face, this will always mean it's time to shut up. So you could go, I want to use this intimidation tactic, you see this look on my face, it's time for you to shut up, kind of thing, in the actual game. So it's a really, really fun way of really personalizing your character. And it can be anything, like it mentions here, backgrounds like bodyguard, con artist, merchant, noble. You can list skills here or phrases, I won't let you down, I'm a street doctor, this is not a negotiation, I'll catch you. So these kind of things to just give your character a little bit more flavor. And obviously when we're building Vi here, we've got a lot of material to pull from Arcane itself. Now in Daggerheart, I'll just read the official description here. Your experience is one of the core ways you'll express your character's backstory and expertise through mechanics. An experience is a word or a phrase used to encapsulate a specific set of skills your character might have because of the exciting life that they've lived. So the more generic it is, I guess you could use it in a wider variety of ways. But from what I've seen of like Matt Mercer running games, he really encourages characters to get quite specific with their skill set. Otherwise, it's just like it doesn't really work. So, for example, I think it gives an example here. For example, instead of just assassin, but in this case, if you add of the Sapphire Syndicate, there's this intrigue of who are the Sapphire Syndicate? Maybe that's something for your GM to come up with, or maybe you got inspiration from them for this specific thing. So what does that do for your character in the world? Where might that get you if you're talking to someone? How much sway does it give you if you say, I am an assassin of the Sapphire Syndicate? Not only does it enhance your mechanical expertise, but it creates more too. Last up on this little experiences section is you create connections to other characters that you're playing with. So a really fun way of negotiating, I guess, with your fellow players and making some experiences to tie your stories together. It's a good way to spark for some imagination for some experiences too, I think. Right, now we have gone with a level 8 character for Vi. I didn't think she was like super OP. I'm thinking like level 10, which is the highest it goes to at the moment, would be like a Victor level character where he basically turns into like Arcane's Jesus or whatever. In this case, we've gone for level 8 because she's pretty damn efficient and powerful. By the end of Arcane Season 2, obviously, we see her do a lot of crazy stuff, go head-to-head with all sorts of enemies. So I'll just very quickly rattle off through these and let's see what you think. Oh, if you're enjoying this, by the way, please leave a like and a comment. If you've played Daggerheart, leave a comment below of what you thought of the game. I haven't actually played yet. I've only theory crafted, so it is what it is. At level 2, you get to pick a new experience. Now, I've gone with Inmate 516. Now, that is Vi's code when she does actually get sent to prison early on in Season 1 of Arcane. I just thought this was a good experience because it was, I guess, a really big tipping point in her life. You think of an experience, she was there for 6 or 7 years canonically, I think. So that's a huge amount of time. That's where she gets, I guess, her strength and her brawn, and her attitude changes. Well, maybe not so much, but her attitude definitely does change entirely. I think being an inmate could get you in with some of the circles. It's almost like putting criminal there as an experience, I guess. Your damage threshold increases, so there are just passive buffs. Your proficiency increases as well, which kind of works the same way as it does in Dungeons & Dragons. It's kind of just a generic buff to everything you try to do. For our level up options, we've gone with an increased trait first, and then adding an extra armor slot to our character. So when you level up, between certain thresholds, between certain tiers of play is how it works in Daggerheart. You can only choose a certain amount of these, so you can't just increase your traits over and over again every time you level up. You have to pick something different each time you level up, essentially. So for those traits, I decided to increase my agility and my strength, the things that made the most sense. And I thought the things that made the most sense, if we think about it story-wise in Arcane when she's in prison, what is going to improve? Probably not any social skills, but her physical abilities more so. For our domain deck card choice, which you get every level up as well, I've gone for Bold Presence, which again is from the Valor domain. When you make a presence roll against a hostile target, you can spend a hope to also add your strength trait to that roll. So without a doubt, Vi is she definitely has a presence. Her general stature and demeanor when she walks into a room coming out of prison, I think this is fair enough. But what this allows you to do is when you're rolling presence, when you're rolling something charismatic, which is basically what it is, it's a charisma score, you can add your strength to it instead. At level 3, we increase our damage thresholds again. Don't need to go into that too much. Level up options, I've gone for an extra domain card and an increase to our evasion. So your evasion is basically if a monster rolls below it, they just miss. Straight up miss. For our extra domain card, I've gone with Scramble, which is from the Blade skill tree, so a bit more fighter type. Once per short rest, when an enemy in melee range would deal damage to you, you can avoid the damage entirely and safely move out of range. So I thought this was very much like a bob and weave type thing from being a boxer. So yeah, when an ally would deal damage to you, you can just avoid it once and then kind of move away. So being very boxer-like in that scenario there. And then we've gone for the actual domain card we get at this level. gone for a level 2 one actually called Body Basher. Thought it made sense. Use the full force of your body in the fight. On a successful attack with a melee weapon, you always add your strength trait to your damage total. So you get an extra chunk of damage regardless of what weapon you're using as well with that. Putting a full force behind a punch or an attack. Level 4, increase the damage threshold once again, making you a bit more healthy. Level up options, I went for an HP slot and a stress slot just to make us a bit more resilient overall. For our domain deck card this time around, we went with, where is it? Another one from the Blade tree, which is Deadly Focus. Once per short rest, you can apply all your focus towards a single target. Choose that target, and until you attack another one, you defeat the creature or the battle ends at a +1 to your proficiency. So that's just a buff across the board to everything you do in this particular scenario. Now my inspiration for this was when she does take a couple of one-on-ones with Sevica across both seasons. So I thought this made sense there. She has a deadly focus on defeating that particular opponent. At level 5, you get to add a new experience. And I've actually gone with, well, your guard needs work. Now that is a quote from Vander towards the end of season 1 where, as I mentioned, Vi is fighting Sevica and it looks like she's going to lose, but she has like this hallucination, this moment, and she gets roused basically. And this is the quote from Vander. It's a fantastic moment in the season. I think I teared up when I first saw it. So good. We do get some increases to our damage thresholds, proficiency. Our level up options at level 5, we went for increased traits once again and an upgraded subclass card. For our trait increases, I went with strength and presence. I think by the time like season 2 comes around, she's got a bit more charisma about her and of course more strength once again. For our domain deck card, I went with Champion's Edge, which is a level 5 blade ability. So when we get a critical success on attack roll, we can spend 3 hope to choose to do something basically. So clear a hit point, clear a marked armor slot, or mark +1 hit point on the target of the attack. So you can kill something quicker or help yourself a little bit. And I think, yeah, I mean, Champion's Edge kind of makes sense. She is kind of that. She has an unnatural resilience, I guess, and toughness, and can really dish out some damage. So I love that. Makes sense. So our level up options for level 6, I went with an additional domain card once again, and the option at this level which you can choose is adding another armor slot or evasion. So let's just take a look at the extra domain card that I took first of all, which was Rage Up from the Blade skill tree. Again, just taking some from the fights with Sevica where she does actually properly rage, and with Jace when they're killing the kind of shimmer enhanced Zornites. Before making an attack roll, you may mark a stress to increase the damage of that roll by double your strength trait. You may rage up twice per attack roll. So basically you can hit something real hard. So when Vi gets particularly angry, this works. This is good. This is one of those proper fight scene montages in Arcane. And then I chose the +1 to evasion as opposed to 2 armor slots. I thought that made a little bit more sense because she doesn't wear armor, but you could probably go either here. And the domain deck card at this level that I chose is Rise Up. So we've got Rage Up and Rise Up. This is from the Valor tree though. While this card is in your loadout, increase your severe damage threshold by your proficiency. So that is 4 by level 8, I believe. We just don't die as quickly. I think it makes sense. She's become more hardy as she's got older and leveled up. At level 7, we have more increases to our thresholds. The level up options I've gone with are HP and stress once again. And again, this is all, I've not actually played the game yet, so I don't know what's fantastic. All these things just made sense to me. I'm sure once I've played the game enough or a lot, I'll be able to make more informed decisions about this kind of thing. The domain deck card at this level, at level 7 that we took, is Shrug It Off, which I think feels very Vi. Even just the name, I was like, yeah, click immediately. When you would take damage, you may mark a stress to reduce the severity of the damage by 1 threshold. This just stops you from being absolutely annihilated each fight. She is very hardy. She can take a punch, so this makes sense. Now, when you do roll 1d6, if your result is the 3 or below, place this card into your vault. So you can't do it endlessly, but it allows you to do it maybe a couple of times. I guess I should mention the vault. So when you pick domain cards, you have a few that you can use on a day. I think there's other times you can change them as well. That you can spend stress to just change them on the fly. But your vault is where all of your domain cards go, because at this level you can actually only equip 5 at a time. Think of it like swapping in and out character features. in Dungeons and Dragons. Pretty cool. At level 8, we've got our final experience, which is when she properly, I've put don't sugarcoat it, cupcake. Now, I think this would be used in more of a present sense if you're trying to get something out of someone and they're being a little reserved, perhaps, or you want someone to tell them what you really think, something along those lines. I wasn't quite sure how to use this, but I had to get the cupcake line in, didn't I think. Obviously, when Vi is talking with Caitlin, this is the signature. Everyone knows it. Everybody loves it. We also get some increases to our thresholds, increase to our proficiency at level 8. And the level up options I chose were another domain card. Again, we just want more options at this point, to be honest. And a HP slot, just to make us a little bit more healthy. So the extra domain card that I chose was Valor Touch. This is from the Valor tree, obviously. When a majority of the domain cards in your loadout are from the Valor domain, your armor score increases by +2 while this card is in your loadout. When you mark 1 or more hit points from damage, roll 1d6. If you get a 5+, you can clear a stress. So you're clearing your stress resources so you can spend them more freely, I feel like, when you take damage. So it just gives you the ability to do a bit of a trade-off and spend more skill points, swap out your domain cards if you need to by spending stress. And your armor score is just increased if most of the things that you have are Valor, and most of them are. You should keep it that way because it makes our armor score very good. The primary domain deck card I took for this level is Ground Pound. None of the level 8 stuff really made sense. I thought this one made the most sense just with the arcane gauntlets that she has. I know she can do shields and she's punched walls through and done some crazy stuff with them. I can't think of a specific time where she punched the floor, but it's not out of the realms of possibility for her, I don't think. Spend 2 hope, strike the ground where you stand, make a strength roll against any enemies within very close range of you. All you succeed against are thrown back to far range and must make a reaction roll of 17. On a failure, they also take 4d10 plus 8 damage, and that's a good amount of damage in this, especially in kind of an AoE. On a success, they take half damage instead, rounded up. So it's kind of just an AoE blast, basically. That rounds out our leveling up process. So let's go and take a quick look at the character sheet. So welcome to the character sheet. You can see it's laid out beautifully, just like D&D Beyond usually is. You have all your scores across the top. So breaking those down real quick: agility is your ability to sprint, dodge, leap. Strength is your ability to lift, smash, grapple. Finesse, control, hide, tinker. Instinct, perceive, sense, navigate. Presence, charm, perform, deceive, and knowledge. Recall, analyze, comprehend. It's the same as D&D. There has to be some trade-offs. There has to be some dump stats. I thought finesse, Vi definitely does have some. Like, she is stealthy, like right at the start of Arcane. They move through the streets quickly. She's literally a thief, so it makes sense to have some of this. But I thought instinct and presence were more present, dare I say, for Vi in particular. The domain cards I have equipped right now, obviously you can swap these out as you like. Bare bones, so we have that bonus to armor class while we're not wearing armor. We have the shrug it off ability, so we can just reduce the damage that we take until we roll a bad d6 roll, basically. Scramble is like the bob and weave. If you would take damage, you can just avoid it once per short rest and dash out of the way. I feel like that makes a bunch of sense. Deadly focus is like when we're channeling that fight with Sevica. It's a one-on-one. As a boxer, I feel like you would want to focus on one particular target. So maybe this just goes into your play style of just one to the next, to the next, to the next, rather than spreading out your damage. And then finally, Valor Touched. Your armor score increases by 2. Why would we not take this? As such a high level domain. But when you mark 1 or more hit points damage, roll 1d6. If you get a 5+, clear a stress. So we have 9 HP. We have 9 stress to spend. So that's a lot of resources to spend there. And we have 8 armor slots at the top here. These are our damage thresholds just on the left hand side. And yeah, all of our experiences are on the right here. So you add a +2 whenever you make a roll using one of your experiences. We also have our hope counters up the top here, which we can spend for abilities. When we took that upgraded subclass feature at level 5, I think, this is what we got from having a specialization in it, essentially. When an enemy damages an ally within your melee range, the next successful attack you make, then there's a +1 to proficiency. So easy to hit, does more damage. Why would we not want that? We've kind of gone through everything else. I guess, in fact, we didn't see this. From our ancestry as a human, we get an additional stress slot in character creation. and adaptability when you fail a roll that utilize one of your experiences. You can mark a stress to re-roll. You must take the new result. Also very useful. Can't remember whether we went through this from the Slyborn background as well. We do get advantage on any rolls where you're negotiating with criminals, detecting lies, or finding a safe place to hide. Makes sense for someone from Zorn. Now with equipment, pretty basic. As far as I'm aware, no way to publish homebrew on this yet, so I've just picked what I could. Thankfully, there are arcane gauntlets in this at all kind of tiers of play. So if you take a look here, we have a tier 1 magical weapon, arcane gauntlets, a tier 2 magical weapon, tier 3, and tier 4. I thought these impact gauntlets specifically, which deal physical damage, they also scale from strength, and they have this concussive feature. I thought these could be the very rudimental fist weapons that Vander uses, which are passed down to Vi in Arcane Season 1, and then these are obviously the Hex Tech gauntlets, and they just increase in damage and effectiveness all the way up. We have the legendary ones equipped right now. So that is our first Daggerheart build. This is Vi from Arcane at level 8. I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, if you've played Daggerheart, please leave a comment down below of what you think. The plan is to get a campaign going here in the next couple of months once I'm prepared and my players are ready to learn the system, and we will be recording it as well, so I have something to post on the channel so you can see if you'd be interested in playing this kind of game. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you want to do another one. I'm planning on it anyway, so if you don't like it, it is what it is. Maybe we'll just do a couple and then call it quits. But thank you so much for watching. This has been Nathrandir's Guide to Everything. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.